Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our latest Future of the Service webinar with Public Sector Catering, Public Sector Catering 100 Group, and today we're joined by LACA, the school food people, to talk about schools, back to schools, and the issues that are going forward. I'm delighted that we are joined today by both the immediate past chair of only just over a week ago, Stephen Forster, and the new national chair of LACA, Jacquie. They'll be answering questions from David Foad, and then we'll give you a couple of updates on key LACA events coming up in the next few weeks. Just waiting for numbers to log in. Give it another sort of 30 seconds or so, and then we'll pass over to David. Okay, we seem to have sort of slowed down a bit now. So David, over to you.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm David Foad, editor of Public Sector Catering magazine, and thank you for joining us for the latest in our Future of Your Service webinars. As Andrew says, today we're turning our attention to school catering, and I'm delighted to say we have a double-header interview lined up when we talk to outgoing LACA chair Stephen Forster and his successor, Jacquie. As time allows, I hope we'll be able to put questions from you to them as well after that. We'll also be finding out from Andrew Archer, Managing Director of Dewberry Redpoint, more about the plans and preparations for the main event 2021, which this year has been put back to the autumn for reasons you can well imagine. And we'll also be hearing from Nigel Argyle of LACA Marketing about all the ideas, events and promotions around LACA's National School Meals Week, which is coming up in November. But before we get started on that, a quick reminder about how the webinar works. Other than the panelists and me, everyone will be muted. If you want to get in touch during the webinar, you can put a question to the panelists using the Q&A function. Please include your name and company. But there's no need to wait to start taking questions. You can post one at any time. If you just want to comment and get involved using the chat function, please remember to use the option to all panelists and attendees. We won't, unfortunately, be able to answer any questions you post in the chat. Right, now to meet the two people involved in the handover of power at LACA, to get their perspectives on the role of the chair, the achievements of the organisation, and the challenges that the school meals sector faces. Good morning, Stephen. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Good morning, David. I don't know about handover of power, but that sounds very grand. But yeah, we are in that sort of time of change now where we're moving from chair to chair. But Jacquie and I have been working very closely these past months. So really, I think it's going to be a seamless transition, and we're not going to have any real sort of issues with that.
Right, well, let's hope Jacquie agrees. Hello, Jacquie.
Good morning.
Well, welcome to the webinar, and
thank you.
What I must be imagine one of your first official duties as new chair of LACA.
It is indeed, yes. Earlier this week I had the annual members meeting, but yes, this is my first public webinar. So yeah, very excited to be the new chair.
Right, thank you. Right, let's crack on with the questions then. Stephen, you started off your term of office in 2019, obviously with no idea that nearly 18 months of lockdown were bearing down on us. You had three issues that you said you wanted to focus on, and I wonder how the disruptions that have come with COVID have affected your ambitions. Let's start with securing an increase in UIFSM funding. Tell us about how that work has gone.
Yeah, well, David, clearly the last 18 months has been a trial to us all, and we're still feeling its impact despite schools having returned and the perception that everything is back to normal. Staffing issues are a challenge for us all. Increasingly the food supply chain is being disrupted. So we're not back to normal. But I was really pleased in terms of the Universal Infant Free School Meals area that was one of my objectives. That first of all, the Prime Minister praised Universal Infant Free School Meal policy and claimed great pride in the policy during the debate on school food that we heard during the last few months. the fact that he then went on to claim that this was a policy introduced by a Conservative government was really positive. And I guess that we saw the first inflationary price increase since its introduction in 2014, last year, with an uplift of 4p per meal, which was positive, but it's not yet enough to keep pace with all the upward pressure on caterers in terms of price. I mean, since 2014, we've seen the introduction of the minimum real living wage and national living wage. We've seen an inflationary increase in terms of food costs and everything going upwards, but that sort of whole area has, our income as caterers has remained fixed. And therefore there are sort of challenges around that. Now, the challenges of the last 18 months have only made that more difficult. So yes, 4p was great, but it is nowhere near enough for the amount that we actually need to maintain the service to the standards that we all want to, or that we all aspire to deliver. I know that we're now sort of preparing our submissions for the comprehensive spending review this autumn. And I know that Jacquie and sort of the team are all sort of committed to that. And I'm sure that sort of the place that we were at this sort of last 18 months, where the government acknowledged and suddenly gave £3 per day for food in terms of food parcels, has got to sit within that whole debate. That £3 of food was acknowledged as being what was needed to feed a child, and yet we get way less than £3 a meal delegated to us as caterers to provide not only the food, but the labour and all of the overhead costs that go with running the service. So whilst I'm happy that we've got some increase, I still say that it's not enough.
Okay, so the fight goes on then to try and
Absolutely.
secure increased funding. All right. You also wanted to develop and implement an allergen strategy. How has that gone?
Yes, I'm really proud that the work done by our working groups means that we now have a really strong allergens policy and risk assessment process. And actually that only last week, that was recognised by the DfE through signposting on their website to us and to our documents is a real triumph for me. So I'm really proud and really pleased with that. Despite everything that's been going on, we were able to press ahead and get the allergens piece done and dusted, and and people using it. It's been on the website now for around a year, and I think that sort of people were starting to see them using it, particularly as children are now coming back and presenting with food intolerances. It's a job well done, and it's a key achievement to us to have this signposting through the DfE. But of course, it's timely to have the work done ahead of Natasha's law, which obviously we all know is coming through next month. And I'm looking forward to meeting Natasha's parents at the main event in October, with actually something that is really positive behind us to say, well, actually, we've played our part in your fight to look after children with allergens and food intolerances.
Okay, thank you very much for that. You're also keen to support the childhood obesity plan by promoting healthy eating alongside more activity. To tell us a little bit about how that particular ambition has panned out.
Yeah, I think that one has probably been more challenging in many ways for us. I certainly have got my share of the fellow fat, David, that I'm not proud of, and that my inactivity has not helped me to get moving. But I think for all of us with the lockdown and the move away from the great healthy and regulated food that we provide for children every day in schools across the country, it's been a more challenging area for us. I know that this will be one of the areas that as LACA will continue to promote, as a combination of healthy eating and activity that make for healthy lives.
Okay. Perhaps I could ask you now just to sort of to try and sort of take a wide view of the sort of couple of years that you've spent as the chair, and give us some of your sort of main impressions of your time.
Yeah. It's been an extraordinary 2 years. It's a privilege to have served as chair across this period, but it's been exciting, exhausting, challenging, lots of sort of words that just I think I couldn't sort of think of that would have or that I could have thought of having to face over sort of the 2-year period when I set out. We've all had to adapt to new ways of doing things, both in our daily work, in the way that we work, in the place that we work, and in the way that we do things. 2 years ago, I set out with a clear vision, expecting, that I've got 3 objectives and that I'm going to be sort of the LACA chair and I'll be up at the front leading that, but also expected to be out in the regions and working with the members a little bit more. And that really has been interrupted by the lockdown and, having to get used to doing Zoom and Teams and webinars like this almost overnight. But the fact that we've held as LACA something like 12 or 14 webinars now, so a webinar every 6 weeks or so is the way that it's worked out, has meant that we've been probably much more visible than perhaps we would have otherwise been. I'm clearly disappointed that I've not been able to get out to the regions more and meet people personally, but then that's a small price compared to the real impact of COVID on many people's lives. What I hope is that sort of at the end of my term of office is that people can see that not just me as chair, but that the whole LACA team have worked hard and have worked together. And when I say the LACA team, I don't just mean the board, I mean that our partners in LACA, David. So, Dewberry, Allegra, SVC or Oak Hill, we've all worked really hard these past years to share information as it's come forward, to offer support and to seek out answers for questions. And I guess that sort of, whilst I've got that disappointment in the term, that I've not had sort of some of the good things to do, it's been an immense privilege to have served in a period that has just been unprecedented in terms of the history of school food. So, yeah.
Okay. Now, I understand that you're still going to be playing quite a significant part in the main event next month.
Yeah.
Perhaps you could tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, the main event's almost upon us now, and all things being equal, it would have been my second one, so I probably would have been quite reasonable at doing what was expected of me the second time round. But as I'm the immediate past chair, I'll be sharing the space with Jacquie, obviously at the main event, but will remain to be sort of the lead voice at the conference itself. I've worked with the events team, and I sort of put that in inverted commas, to agree an attractive and interesting and diverse range of speakers. And of course, there'll be changes to the format this year with the Scotty Live Final, the School Chef of the Year Live Final, featuring at the event for the first time. And I think that the big thing is, of course, being able just to meet and get together with people and see people face to face. Yeah, there'll be different sort of way of doing things. And yes, we've all got to pay attention to social distancing and sort of one-way traffic and all of those things. But the fact that we can all be in the same space and meeting together is just so important. I'm looking forward to it hugely.
Great, thank you very much for that. Jacquie, perhaps I can turn to you now. First of all, congratulations on becoming the new chair of LACA. And I think it might be useful just to sort of find out from you how working as the vice chair elect and then vice chair has helped you to prepare for this moment.
Thank you, David. It really is a great honour, and I certainly have some big shoes to fill. Stephen's done an amazing job, as he said, in unprecedented times. I know we use that word a lot, but it really has been. So yes, I'm sure under his guideship, I shall do a really good job, hopefully. But going back to comments about vice chair and vice chair elect, as the role of chair is a voluntary one, and it usually lasts for 1 year. it doesn't have that benefit of the time to develop in the role. So that's why the role of vice chair elect and then vice chair and the structure behind that, it works so really well and is important. It introduces you to the protocols, make sure that you meet the right people and industry colleagues, partners, MPs, government working groups, and I think the key to that is developing those relationships. So as vice chair, I've worked really closely with Stephen, and we have weekly catch-up calls, and I'm going to continue that as well. And I think that's really important, so we both know what's in each other's minds, and it keeps that continuity. And it's really important to understand the dynamics of these groups that we meet with, and then I can build that continuity going forward. And of course, the introduction of Neil Porter as the business director has also ensured that we continue with that succession programme and planning, and there's that continuity is there and will remain. But yeah, I feel I've had a really good grounding and worked my way through all these various groups and meetings and people, and certainly the structure behind planning, knowing what our members want, and getting that information out to them. So yeah, I definitely feel very ready for it.
Right, okay. What do you see as the strengths that you have in terms of your sort of experience and abilities that will benefit LACA as an organisation?
So I actually spent the last 31 years in school meals industry. Prior to that, it was private sector and staff catering and high street catering, that sort of thing. So yeah, a lot of experience, and I've seen all the changes and challenges that have been thrown at us. And I think as a local authority provider, I've got that experience and knowledge of all of those challenges, and in particular frontline operations. So I know that flexibility as well as resilience is really key. In my day job, we've developed and created a service that moves with the times. And I think this is key for any business in order to survive. And being the new chair of LACA is just the same. So I feel my background will help us ensure that we adapt and develop to ensure we support our members. And I am a good communicator and a good listener. And I think these things are both really important when you're heading up any team. So listening to our members and providing them with the support in the areas that they need is certainly going to be one of my priorities as chair. But yeah, I think 31 years is a long time, but in school meals it's blown by, I must say. But I think that gives me a good grounding in all things that I'll need to be chair.
Okay. Now, Stephen talked a little bit earlier about some of the ambitions he had when he came into the role, and I wonder, as a new chair coming in, you obviously will have some ideas of your own. Can you share some of those with us, please?
Yeah, certainly. As I mentioned before, I think continuity is key. So I certainly want to build on those objectives of Stephen's. It's important that we progress those. So I think the key one for me is the expansion of universal infant free school meals, ensuring, as we've said many times before, every child gets that hot, nutritious meal. And I think that's been shown even more so during the pandemic of how vital that is. The second one I'd say is increasing in funding. So we've had an increase to £2.34 for free school meals and universal infant free school meals. But what we will be campaigning for, what I will be spearheading, is an annual inflationary increase. And certainly, as Stephen mentioned in the annual spending review, we will be making representation as to these recommendations. And as Stephen mentioned, the continuation of the allergen tool and promoting that, and as he mentioned, particularly with Natasha's Law starting very soon. It was Stephen that was very close, a project that was very close to Stephen's heart. So yeah, very much so want to push and continue with that, because I do believe, and I use it ourselves, in my day job in Nottingham. So it's a really good tool, and would recommend it to everybody. So we need to push that. I think the other thing is that engaging with industry specialists to promote and support members to achieve carbon neutrality. I think that is, as we know, COP26 is a matter of days away. There's big challenges across all industries, but particularly in school meals. I think we have our part to play, and we can make a big impact. So certainly we're starting to meet with specialists in this area, and we're already partnering with the University of Edinburgh to support them with the creation of a carbon measuring tool that they're developing. Because, in order to know what we need to do and how we need to improve, we certainly need to have that benchmark and know where we are currently. And then obviously we can start to look at tools, methods, and promotions through our webinar and our website to help members to achieve that reduction, which is something that we obviously all want for our planet. And I think finally, I'd say, as Stephen very much worked closely with me and included me in all of his thinking as I was vice chair, I intend to do the same with Brad and obviously Anita as vice chair elect. So again, we keep that continuity and the same messages going through, the same priorities and objectives for LACA. And not least of all, Stephen as outgoing chair, who I'm sure I will be using as an experienced sounding board.
Okay. Now, in the news right now, there's an awful lot of talk about HGV driver shortages, which obviously are impacting the food chain and food deliveries. And we're also hearing about significant staff shortages, which obviously also could have an impact on the school meals sector. So I wonder what your view is on how serious those problems are, and perhaps there are other challenges as well that you foresee.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. The current sort of short-term concerns are food supplies and staff recruitment. Although I have to say, I think it's only small pockets and certain food items, and speaking to colleagues and from my own personal experience, it tends to be more about substituting certain items. So it's not a wholesale shortage of one particular line, or say chicken or beef, lamb, whatever. So I think at the moment, most people will have put plenty of contingencies in place. I know certainly most people have a business continuity plans, so they'll have stocks and stores, and working with our partners, suppliers, and they're really good at keeping us up to date as to what is happening. And as you know, as school meal caterers, we're always extremely flexible. We're always used to dealing with various challenges, and we've got some creative people out there. So it's about managing menus and looking at alternatives. So I think at this point in time, we're okay with school meals and food supplies. I do know we're struggling a little bit with staff recruitment, and I know that sometimes it's things like processes and procedures that take time. And then if there's any backlogs with DBS checks, obviously for staff, they can't start until they've got those. So that does have some impact. But again, as I said, I think as school caterers, we're used to dealing with these sorts of problems, and we've got that flexibility and certainly can flex the way that we work. Sure, we do manage. I think in the longer term, it's going to be budget pressures for people, because as food prices increase and inflation increases, and if it's a recruitment market out there, staffing costs will increase as well, and that will put pressure. So that's why I'm really, really keen to highlight that in the spending review and push for that increase in funding.
Right. I think maybe LACA members themselves would be interested to know what, if any, sort of help and support the organisation can provide them in helping to meet some of these challenges.
Okay, our relationship with key government departments, so we meet monthly with Department for Education and have regular discussions with MPs. So we've got an opportunity to campaign for things like the annual increase in budget, and also our website and seminars, all of those information. We send direct emails out. So, and I certainly know, Stephen, during the pandemic, we really pushed on the website. So all the key links for government information, the latest information on our standards and guidance for food parcels, all of that sort of information's up there. And I think that's where it's been really useful. So whilst, as Stephen said, it's been a real big change for us in the way that we meet, in some ways it's been a real benefit having these webinars more regularly and Zoom meetings, because actually there's more information getting out there, which is more up to date. So I think we will definitely continue with that. We're looking at speakers at conferences, guidance documents. So we're working on a guidance document for food served outside of lunchtime to support members with the standards required, and give that practical advice as well. So that will be appearing very soon on our website. And also there's a number of other new projects. So we've done lots of surveys. We've got 2 really strong sets of survey data, both from members and parents. And actually they will be showcased again at the main event. But again, it's about understanding the pressures from members and then being able to react and provide those tools, support, webinars, and even direct messaging. So we have that through our website as well. And very shortly, we're going to be opening up a LACA LinkedIn page, which again will be another means of keeping colleagues up to date. So yeah, I think we have some good channels there to get that information out to support.
Great, thank you for that.
Can I just come in there with a point, David? And that is that sort of we very much are seen as that representative voice of the sector, and quite often we come out with snapshot surveys and so on, and we really do rely on our members to come back to us with data and with information, because it's only that information that we can then take on to sort of the appropriate space that means that we're actually saying something that's valid. So, when we do put an appeal out for a survey, if I could just sort of take this opportunity to say to everybody, we don't just ask the information because we want to gather it for ourselves. It's that we're actually using it to inform discussions elsewhere. And that it's really important that if people want to have their say and want us to be their representative voice, that they give us the tools and the information that we need to go out there and speak on their behalf. Okay,
yep, thanks for that. That actually brings me to another point. So I wanted to sort of try and widen out the sort of the focus just a little bit now. And you make the point, Stephen, that LACA is the preeminent representative of for the school meal providers. And I wonder if you have any concerns at all about some of the many other bodies that are also getting involved in the school catering debate, perhaps using the school catering to further sort of wider social aims, and in the process possibly diluting your own message. Yeah.
Do you want me to jump in there, Jackie? Or
yeah, by all means.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many social campaigners and people that surround our industry that may be well-meaning, but that very few of them have any responsibility or experience of actually delivering school food. So sometimes it comes across that they are making statements about what we do that are only informed by the knowledge that they gather. And that worries me, that they can then influence thinking without actually having any responsibility for delivering. So it's almost the sort of people around the periphery meddling in a service that they could do more harm than good. I think my worry is that many are using school meals as a platform to achieve other aims, and that unwittingly a lot of campaigning diverts attention from actually what we're about, which is about great, healthy school food. And for example, the topic of holiday feeding is suddenly being pushed as free school meals. Well, it isn't free school meals, it's holiday feeding. It's a service that's, you know, grown up, and I'm not denying that there's a need for it, but it's not free school meals. The fact is that it's food that is being provided to children who are on holiday and out of school. But I think that, you know, sort of that kind of thing might be sort of being a little bit clutching at straws to say that, but it's a fact. And that, you know, very often we hear stories about food that is being provided as holiday feeding, and it's classed as free school meals, and it's nowhere near the standards that we have to deliver every day to children in schools. I think that, you know, sort of that has been an area, and I'm not decrying the provision that is made during holidays at all by that statement, but I think I'm using that as an example as to where sort of the attention is diverted from our daily job of feeding children well in school and supporting their education to other areas that can be sort of picked up by social campaigners that potentially then distract funding from the main provision during term time. I think that, you know, sort of our focus has always been on feeding children hot, healthy meals in school. And in the main, we do this very well. And therefore, I do get concerned that we've got people surrounding us that are critical of what we do, and that potentially may want to sort of divert the funding from the core provision into other areas. You know, the government have only got a finite pot, and therefore my concern is that that finite pot gets spread away from what we do on a daily basis.
Thank you. Jacquie, do you share those concerns?
Yeah, I was just going to say I certainly do, and I think my concern is the same. You know, there isn't a lot of money there, and it's very clear that governments have got some huge pressures budget-wise following COVID, and I think you know, the fact is that the main meal at lunchtime is the key one, and we don't want anything to be detracting from that. Yes, it's, you know, we all do those extra provisions, breakfast clubs, after school, those sorts of things, but the key for me is making sure that as many children get that lunchtime meal, and we need to focus on that, make sure there's no distractions to it. Yeah, I'd endorse what Stephen has said.
Sure, okay, thank you. And now another point that I wanted to just put to you both is that there's been a suggestion that following, for instance, the hospital food review, that it might be time to do a school food review. I wonder, Stephen, if you think that would be helpful, and if so, if they went ahead with it, what should it focus on?
Well, first of all, David, I think it takes me back to the beginning of the interview. We've just come through 18 months of unprecedented disturbance for schools, for all that is done in schools, and for the school food industry in general. So no, I don't think now is the right time for a school food review. And I think that in the main, and there are always exceptions, but in the main, what we do well. And I'm worried that the campaigners at the moment may do the industry more harm than good by trying to take the focus away from the pure lunchtime provision, or from the pure provision at school, to be extended, and as I say, try and spread that budget that's a finite budget into something that is trying to cover and be all to all. And therefore, I think that what we should be doing is focusing on getting back to the core provision, getting back to the school food standards, and ensuring that the school food standards are monitored and are delivered in every school across the country.
Okay, thank you. Jacquie, any thoughts on that?
Yes, I think that review and monitoring is key. As Stephen said, the majority of us do provide an excellent service, but I think that does need to happen. And certainly the food strategy document makes reference to that. So yes, it's important to have things like cooking on the curriculum and all those things, but fundamentally it's, you know, and also obesity and all those things, but actually if you can get a really solid lunchtime service with really good quality food, those children, in fact, we actually use the phrase that, lunchtime is the ninth lesson. And I think that's key with the right support and certainly working with our head teachers. So if we get that whole school approach, I think, you've got some wonderful examples of how it can work really well. And I think it's our job to showcase that and highlight that. And certainly from our perspective, I think that is key to the work that we do.
Okay, we have some questions that come in, and we've got time to take a few of them at least. So perhaps, Jacquie, if I can stay with you for the moment, bearing in mind LACA has communication with the DFE and the government and various other levers that it can pull on the powers that be. What can LACA do to make the government aware about the significant, the questioner here says significant recruitment problems?
So we will be meeting with them in a couple of weeks. So it is monthly, and certainly they're extremely keen to understand the pressures. So way back sort of in May, June, when we were meeting with them, they were starting to ask us, so what is the impact? What's the likely impact of food shortages? And at the last meeting we had, I certainly raised the issue that recruitment was starting to be a problem, and they're very keen to feed that back into key ministers within the department. So yeah, I will definitely be raising that on the agenda in the meeting in the next couple of weeks, and explaining what the problems are and what we need to help support us to get through that.
Right, thank you. Stephen, perhaps I can come to you with the next one. The questioner starts with the statement, LACA membership is increasing, and obviously you can take a little bit of credit for that yourself, because that happened under your watch. But the questioner goes on to say, in the hospital food review, the government encouraged all hospital trusts to become members of the HCA. Do you think we can get the DFE to make a similar call, given the value there is to being a LACA member?
I would like to think so, David. I think I can't preempt what the DFE will do, and of course we've got a new minister there. Gavin Williamson has gone, and we've now got Nadeem Zahawi at the helm at education, with a new minister, Will Quince, looking after school food. We've yet to meet with either of them, though Nadeem we did meet with in his time as school food minister, 2 years ago, before he was the school food minister ahead of Vicky Ford. I think that we meet on a monthly basis with DFE, with officials from DFE, and I think that if we can work towards them, and we will ask them, to align with the NHS and with the Department for Health. Sorry, I lost that. The Department for Health and Social Care. We'll ask them, and we'll say to them that, look, that department recommended membership of the HCA. Can you help us and push that as part of the expectation for people working in the school food industry? Absolutely. And yes, we have seen membership increase. We've seen membership change over the last year or so. People went furlough and everything else. We've seen a whole load of new members. I know that I've just welcomed a new member this week, who has also not just joined but booked a conference place as well. So that's really positive, and we're looking forward to seeing many of the new members in the coming year, if they're not at conference, as we get back out to going back out and about into the regions. One of the things that we have challenged the regions with is developing a membership officer or a membership lead officer in each of the regional committees, so that we welcome new members and make them feel part of the LACA family. We don't just sort of see that somebody's joined and think, all right, well, invite them to a meeting. We want to nurture them in their membership and make sure that they're actually aware of all the benefits that they can get from LACA by having somebody local almost mentoring or buddying up with them.
Okay, thank you for that. Jacquie, we've got a question here, sort of a little bit of a plea as much as a question. It says, we feel that since the pandemic, the school's expectations on us, and I assume that they're talking about school caterers, are unrealistic, and the respect shown to us has been poor. And the questioner says this will stop people coming into the industry and could cause a crisis within school meals. Is that something that you recognise?
I have to say I don't, but it's not to say that hasn't happened in pockets. And I can understand why. I know, speaking from personal experience, we had one school where we were serving in 12 classrooms in a primary school. And that comes with some huge challenges in itself. And I think the difficulty is maintaining that level of service at that standard, because obviously the fact that the pupils aren't coming up to the servery to take the food out into the classrooms, it's fraught with all the usual difficulties, not least of all keeping the food hot, and all the challenges around allergens. And I think, yes, certainly some of our operations team have had to have conversations with head teachers that, maybe I think we're very good at making things happen. And I think that expectation is, oh, well, you'll just do it. So sometimes I think, as caterers, certainly operations teams have to take that time to explain to head teachers that we haven't got that magic wand, we can't just do it. And it's all about working up a compromise, what works for the school and also what is practical from a caterer's point of view. So yes, I would agree there's some real challenges, but I think, as with most things, it comes back to that level of communication and support and explaining the situation, so that you can hopefully both come to an amicable agreement as to the best way forward with that.
Right, thank you. Stephen, now allergens has been something of a real passion of yours during your term of office. And we've got a question here which is asking really about the sort of the extent of the links that LACA has with nutrition professionals, and asking whether dietitians, and specifically the British Dietetic Association, are involved with the organisation at all. Is there a relationship there?
Yes, and in terms of nutrition professionals, we've got many nutritionists that are members of the organisation. We have a nutritionist that works very closely with us in terms of our menu checking service, Louise, if she's on the call. And obviously, sort of, we had a working party that led to sort of the development of the allergens policy and risk assessment process. And that was largely nutritionists that were representative voices from across the sector that led on the work that we did there. We then took that work to a number of different areas, so FSA and the food allergens, like the societies and the charities and so on, and had their involvement. I think that we know that Professor Susan Jebb from Oxford is now the new head of the FSA. And I know that she has got a really keen interest in terms of nutrition, and particularly on obesity. And she sits within the expert panel for the advisory expert panel to the DFE, alongside myself and other nutritionist members that will eventually be making the recommendations in terms of where the school food standards go. What I would say is to these associations, the British Dietetic Association, join, become members. We'll welcome you with open arms.
Okay, thank you for that. Now, I'm conscious that time is moving on a little bit. We perhaps haven't been able to cover every question that's come in. So I wonder if I could ask you, Stephen and Jackie, if there are any topics that we haven't been able to address live, whether I could feed those questions through to you and we could get some answers back and sort of publicise them. You'd be happy enough with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, we look forward to seeing everybody at the main event. And I know that Andrew is going to be talking a little bit more about that. But from my perspective, and I know Jackie's as well, I think, meeting and seeing people in person, rather than talking to a screen, is going to just be, it's going to be amazing. And we all, well, I was at the Public Sector Awards fortnight ago now. Seeing 600 people in a room was amazing. And, you know, sort of, to my knowledge, it was all done safely, and I've not heard that there was any problem from that. So, David, that's a job well done to you and the team at Dewberry for setting that up. Certainly for the whole of public sector, and I thank you for that. And thank you for sort of the opportunity to talk today.
Yeah,
That's queued things up. That's queued things up very nicely. So thank you both, Stephen and Jackie. And time now for me to hand over to Andrew Archer, who's going to tell us some more about a highly significant LACA event that's coming up.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Just a really quick run through on what's going to be happening at the main event in, well, just over, we'll be there in 3 weeks' time, or in fact, we'll be just about to finish in 3 weeks' time. So the main event's going to happen in its usual location, the Hilton Birmingham Metropole, from Tuesday the 12th to Thursday the 14th of October. As always, there are 3 or 4 things going on during those few days. So we have an exhibition where we've got something in the region of 130 exhibitors for you to see new products and produce and services, which is fantastic. I'll talk a little bit at the end of this about what we're doing from a COVID safe perspective. Stephen's already touched on it, but we'll make you aware of what we're doing so you feel safe when you're there. The LACA Awards will be presented on the night of Wednesday the 13th. As always, we've had many entries this year and really looking forward to celebrating some of the amazing things that have happened in school food over the last sort of 18 months, really. For the first time ever, we've got School Chef of the Year as a live final at the main event. We're really excited about this. It's going to be the main feature, the entrance to the Monarch Suite. So you'll be able to come and see 11 competitors this year compete over the 2 days, become School Chef of the Year, very kindly sponsored by Corn. Opportunities to watch them do what they do so well. The judges will be there, and then on again at the awards dinner, Gala Awards dinner on Wednesday the 13th, we'll be announcing the winner. So really excited about making that a proper live event that everyone can see for the first time. As always, we'll have our finishing touches where we promote the amazing talents across the school food industry, with tray bakes and novelty cakes and all sorts of categories, something in the region, I think it's 15 categories. So do come along and see that. And thank you to McDougall's for the sponsorship of that. And then, of course, we've got the forum and the delegate program. So I'll tell you a bit about that and who we've got speaking. So the first thing, we've already talked a bit about allergens already and how important it is. Well, we're delighted that we're going to be joined by Nadim and Tanya Ednan Farouz, the parents of Natasha, who, as we all are aware, sadly died as a result of an allergen reaction. They will be joining us. We'll be then having a panel. We'll be talking about the Natasha's Law, which will have just come in. We'll be talking about the potential for Owen's Law that's around the corner, a major issue. They will be speaking with us on Wednesday the 13th. The conference will be opened by Dr. Rang Singh, who will tell us and talk to us about child health and the importance of food and health and nutrition. So he'll be opening that session, and then we'll close the whole event on the 14th with an inspirational presentation by Tessa Sanderson, the javelinist, if that's a word, who will just be taking us through her career. Amazingly, she's just about 70 years old, and she's got 15-year-old children at school, so she's got first-hand experience of school food as well. This year, we actually are splitting it. All those keynotes are in closed sessions. However, we are also having open sessions where visitors as well as delegates can come in and see some of the presentations. So you can see on your screen some of the things that are going on both days, Tuesday and Wednesday, talking about carbon footprints, which are going to obviously become a huge part of everything that we do. Reducing and recycling plastic is another key topic that will be going on. You'll be able to see all of this on the LACA main event website, lacamainevent.co.uk. going to be talking about food and mood and how food affects people's performance, being obviously very relevant to children in schools. And obviously procurement is changing. We've got speakers from the Southwest Food Hub and the NFU and the LACA buying group who are going to talk to you about the change in procurement models that are going on. And in the closed sessions, we've got 4 nations working together. We have representation from across the country talking about how it differs in different parts of the country. You can see we're talking about the effects of COVID, not just in the UK. In fact, we're going to be looking at that around the world. And really excitingly, Stephen just touched on this. We, LACA have done a piece of research with Parent Pay. We had 140,000 responses from parents across the UK to the research, which has given us a really robust and definitive sort of view on school food and what's good, what's bad, what needs to change. So we're really excited that we'll be releasing that during the course of the main event and presenting that on the morning of 14th of October. The Parent Pay will have a room at the main event, the Lancaster suite, where people will be able to go and get a sort of pre-look at the research during the course of the main event from Tuesday the 12th. So I really sort of push people to go and have a look at that. That is going to be probably the most definitive piece of research that I'm aware of that's being done into parental views on school food in the UK. I said I'd just really quickly touch on this before I hand over to Nigel, just make sure you know what we're doing. These are just a few of the things that are going on, but all the exhibition and features will have a one-way system through them in order to prevent people crossing over and to help with social distancing. On your arrival, we will be looking to check your COVID certificate, whether that be a lateral flow certificate or a double vaccination certificate. You'll then be wristbanded, and from that point on, you won't need to be checked again. But we will be doing that to make sure that everybody that enters the venue is as safe as we can make sure they are. We'll be having hand sanitizer everywhere, on every stand, dispensers everywhere, and you'll also be given an individual hand sanitizer when you arrive. All exhibitors and us, the organisers, will have to do COVID risk assessments on everything. So, and that will all follow what's laid out by the Department of Health. We advise use of face masks when moving around the venue. That's obviously a completely personal decision as things stand at the moment, but we do advise that people do that. We'll also be having increased security to make sure that people can't get in and out of the different areas of the hotel without being checked, that they have had their certificates checked. So that's kind of a very whistle-stop overview of what's going on. I really hope you're all going to come along, and as Stephen says, we ran an event a couple of weeks ago for 650 people. To our knowledge, there's been no positive COVID tests as a result of it. So we're really confident that what we're doing is keeping people safe in these difficult times. I'll now pass over to Nigel, who's just going to give you a quick whistle stop of National School Meals Week.
Thanks, Andrew, and good morning, everybody. I hope you're all keeping fit and well in these very strange times. I'm just going to share screen and just whiz through some slides on National School Meals Week. So obviously LACA is fully aware, as has already been highlighted, in terms of it's very busy for school caterers, and I'm sure theme days aren't the top of your priority at the moment in terms of staffing and food, transportation, and of course many schools aren't back to normal. Many schools doing their own thing with regard to releasing the restrictions, I guess. So what we've tried to do is create some resources that can work for you. They're very flexible. We do know that National School Meals Week continues to be a part of many school caterers' calendar of events in terms of theme days. So it's really important that it does carry on. And I think also in light of the pandemic, it's obviously we want to remind people about the quality of school food. It obviously will be autumn at that time, getting that bit colder. We know many of you use National School Meals Week to promote the benefits of hot school food at that time. A quick reminder, on the National School Meals Week website, there's already a whole host of resources on there. And we had a phone call from somebody not so long ago saying, can we use some of the resources from last October about, hot food, Hoptober as it was, getting back getting kids back to school. So of course they are there for you to use and for you to adapt as you see fit. So they are on the website and available to download. With regard to the National School Meals Week resources, the key driver really is around fun and reminding people about what's going on. So this year we've tied in with the obviously the I'm a Celebrity activity, which again will be in Wales this year because of travel restrictions. So obviously around the castle, and you know, we know one of the key things around that is the food tucker trial. As mentioned at the last seminar, we've been very careful as to how we position school food to make sure that that works. But key drivers, come and have a look. It's about fun, discover, explore, remind yourself about what a quality school meal is all about. The aim is obviously to get children in to remind people about what's going on, and we've used kind of a key theme throughout to tie in with the jungle. Depending on which website you go on, it's, you know, in some on some websites it's definitely happening on a certain date. On many, it's alluding to the fact that it will be available. It will be running from around the 14th of November. So we know this will tie in. I think that the TV station's just been a little bit cautious at the moment in case there may be another outbreak. But of course, we would expect it to happen as it did last year. So what have we got? Some simple activities. There's about 50 resources now available on the website, available in both English and Welsh. If anybody wants something in particular that isn't on there, which is by the website, by the way, obviously I mean the NSMW website. So either type in nsmw.org.uk or just Google search National School Meals Week and you'll get there. There's say 50 plus resources, activity sheets, letters to parents, press releases, all kinds of things. If there's something that you go on that isn't there, or if you want access to the logos to use with your own resources, obviously for members, LACA would be more than happy to support that. So please just let us know through the normal channels, all of which you can access through the National School Meals Week website. Again, we've created 5 days. We recognise most people might run one. Again, we tried to time with some of the things that we know you'll do anyway. So like a meat-free Monday, we'll put a spin on it, or National Roast Dinner Day, put a spin on it, and you know, popular use updates, those kinds of things. I won't go into this in great deal because it is all on the website, but as I say, 5 great days. And to talk about more than just the school meal and the food, Andrew alluded to some of the things that are happening at the main event and promoting things like the things that we do around the carbon footprint, recycling plastic, etc., etc. So again, there are activities and facilities within the resources for you to promote the other great things you're doing other than just the kind of the great school food message, obviously plant-based, etc., etc. You can see on the bottom of that some of the resources that have been made available. As I say, they're all on the website, so please feel free to click through. If anybody's doing anything, please let us know. Please copy us on social media. Thanks to Sugarwise, ProVeg and Food for Life Soil Association, the latter who we've worked with now for many years, promoting National Roast Dinner Day, and they obviously support National School Meals Week. Works really well to get the message out there much more strongly. But new this year, ProVeg and Sugarwise, and of course all LACA's partners who are also great at promoting all that we do. Last slide from me. Please do get involved and spread the word. We know you're doing great things. You know you're doing great things. We want to make sure as many people as possible get to hear about those fantastic things. So thank you ever so much. Good luck. Have a fun National School Meals Week. We'll have a lot more information on the LACA stand at the main event. So do please come and visit us on the LACA stand. And David, with that, I'll hand back to you.
Thank you very much, Nigel. That, I'm afraid, has to be it for today. My thanks once again to Stephen, to Jackie, to Andrew, and to Nigel, and to you for joining us. On the final webinar slides, you'll see the logos of the Public Sector Catering 100 Group sponsors, whose generous support makes events like today's possible. We thank them. And again, a thank you to you for joining us today. Our next event will be a chance to meet the new chair of the Hospital Caterers Association, Brian Robb, on November the 4th. Look out for more details on this. Thank you and goodbye.